I'm sorry, it's loading.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, I'm good.
Just let me know.
We're good.
Okay, awesome. Plan the United States federal government should establish an extraction fee of at least $43 per ton of carbon dioxide equivalent, increasing 2% per year in real terms, and devote the revenue towards renewable energy research and development and a proportion to refundable tax credit. Contention once warming is real. Anthropogenic and causes extinction. Emission cuts are key for expert consensus. Word 79 scores suggest warming causes GHGs rise CO2 main driving force, and since the overwhelmingly convincing no model failed to show warming, scarcely any expert doubted CO2 are responsible for unprecedented warming, and now in the comment of skeptics, the team compiled accurate long-term measurements of temperatures in the ocean, enhancing called the visible increased smoking up proof of warming. Geochemists numbers for climate sensitivity in past eras wasn't startling agreement with computer studies. Even modest sea level rise would disrupt populations if emissions continue. They bring warming unprecedented faster. New studies pin down disturbing numbers. We would reach if the emissions continue without restrictions, setting up catastrophic planetary change. Panels of experts reviewed the evidence and announced conclusions checked by virtually all major NSA scientific societies. GSAs all agree the world faces a serious problem. All recommended government to adopt strict policies to restrict GHGs. Climate scientists, 97% agreed. Scientists who denied include hardly any who made significant contributions to the climate research field. Evidence show feedback's kicking in the world. Suffer unprecedented heat and storms. Important ecosystems show signs of stress. The climate change on emissions. Paleontologists and computers agree. Extensive studies show consequences would be severe if we did not act properly. It was even that by the end of the century we would face grievous degradation of ecosystems on which civilization depends. Climate change is massively regressive and worse for those least responsible. The plan's unique combination of policy tools solves during 10 the climate change threaten everyone, especially those at the bottom of the economic pyramid and people of color. If you're African American, Hispanic, Native, or Asian, you're more likely to suffer warming can mean food insecurity, heat waves, flooding, and other ills that fall hardest on those with the least well-designed climate policy can help ameliorate that unfairness by ending our addiction to fossil fuels. We can create economic opportunities and protect the climate. How does climate change penalize people of color? Horner and Robinson have the most comprehensive study because of higher poverty rates. African Americans die from heat-related causes at 2 to 3 times the rates of white African Americans. Also tend to live in counties and neighborhoods with worse pollution. Climate disruption means more extreme weather because of the vagaries of the fossil fuel economy and of climate change penalize people of color. The clean energy economy is especially beneficial. Well-designed pricing compensates for the regressive and racially disproportionate toll of climate disruption of the fossil fuel economy. Horner and Robinson modeled the net financial effect of tax and dividend policy. African Americans gain more. The best kind of climate policy is a combination of rebates and public investments in the clean energy transition. Such a plan would slow catastrophic climate change and boost spending power for households at every income level. It would help most those who have done the least to understand the most elusive climate disruption. Setting the tax based on the social cost of carbon means producers leave the fuels in the ground. Williams 16 U.S. working group estimated the social cost of carbon. This represents the best available guideline for the tax rate of $43 per ton of CO2. The tax would start immediately. The efficient tax will rise at the same rate as marginal damage estimates suggest will rise at 2% per year in real terms. Models find that the optimal tax starts much higher and rises without any uncertainty. When a rising tax is imposed, it might make sense to leave the fuel in the ground forever. SEC rise substantially more slowly than the rate of interest tax rising. With the SEC one trigger the green paradox proposal started rates below the SEC, but C must rise more quickly to catch up and be more efficient to start high and rise slow. The plans immediately solve in a predictable price signal totally overhauls power generation and consumption. Confident at all 16 electricity produces more GHG than any other one-third of total emissions for the U.S. to meet targets. Fossil fuel and electricity must be curtailed. Absent strong policies of transition away from fossil fuels is unlikely to occur quickly enough. EPA forecast fossil fuels will still comprise 60% of U.S. generation in 2030. Carbon pricing can have dramatic effects on emissions as soon as the policies implemented. High carbon units will operate less. The price will also change decisions about how much to consume and efficiency measures. Pricing carbon will investments in low carbon tech. When price increases, consumers use less. Economists have to exhaustively study the demand decreases. When price increases, the carbon price will cause grid operations, dispatch logistics, carbon generation, alternatives producers to retrofit existing plants and build new lower carbon plants and consumers to use less electricity. Low carbon alternatives will expand over time. Advancements can occur quickly. Investments drive innovation. Experience with low carbon tech will lead to productivity gains. Learning by doing this is responsible for major decreases in the cost of solar energy. Economic theory and empirical evidence suggest a predictable carbon price to increase tech development breakthroughs to emerge from any sources. The plan goes global border adjustments for follow-on helmet. All 12 U.S. $50 per ton CO2 tax would have considerable impacts on Russia, India, China, Canada, Mexican oil, South Africa. BCAs have the potential to be a game changer. International negotiations have failed to deliver any more than roadmaps. The current regime versus leakage accepting temperature increases above 2 CBCs are the only option. The rest of the world has a strong incentive to respond with a national carbon price incentive to capture rents is likely to prove too attractive. BCs increase the pressure for carbon prices around the world. None of this needs international agreement, although it can accelerate those processes. Energy inputs can be approximated. This was ensure foreign producers are not given unfair treatment. The companies cannot waste full partners result in catastrophic consequences as BCAs expand the coalition of the willing they need to be introduced if existing unilateral actions are not defeated. Even without modeling, the plan causes global diffusion of clean tech melts 2014 adoption by the U.S. of a carbon tax will create an incentive for U.S. and overseas firms to innovate, reduce the impact of demand will create a strong global incentive for the development in other countries' opportunities for scientific collaboration. Open up carbon tax creates an incentive to find multiple ways of reducing CO2. Carbon tax should lead to a broad range of innovation. Using revenues for a proportional tax rebate solves distributional impacts and motivates individual behavioral changes. Roberts said the income tax system should be considered as for delivering the rebate by using infrastructure with which the public is familiar. Policymakers may devote more resources to the actual rebates. No additional structure would be required. A fundamental tax credit will reach all levels of income. A credit provide a behavioral signal to households to conserve energy. The goal of the rebate is to address distributional impacts of climate policy because these track with the income in households like proportion. A rebate should be considered if funds are used simply to increase the amount of benefits under existing programs. Beneficiaries are unlikely to be made aware of the need to conserve energy. Performance standards are inefficient because the cost to meet those standards are higher than a market-based capital trade is highly regressive, producing little revenue to offset distributional impacts. If are used to deliver a rebate, distributional impacts are neutralized. Rebates should be directed preferentially to households with lower income, and identified mechanism of Congress should ensure that the mechanism supports climate goals and addresses impacts and breaches. All beneficiaries contention to is framing to focus on nitty-gritty details of policies necessary to learn the pragmatic details of institutions. Acting without this knowledge is doomed to fail in the institutions that make decisions that actually affect outcomes. Brian 12 at least green consumerism and things like carbon trading are making it real. Just the idea that if we endorse these things, we are tainting our hands as a form of abstraction and wishful thinking. The academic left's good at critiquing, yet poor proposing real alternatives to things abstractly ignoring networks. Assemblages, structures, or regimes would have to be remade to create workable alternatives. The plan seems to be phase 1, ultra radical critique, phase 2, question mark, phase 3, complete transformation. This is where everything begins to fall apart. Revolutionaries, the greatest defender of the reactionary because they drive people in the reigning ideology. We never make concrete proposals for how things ought to be restructured. When we do, cynics jump in with an analysis of all the ways in which these things are doomed to fail. How are we to do anything at all when we have no concrete proposals? What are your proposals? How will you navigate infrastructure today? We are intellectually bankrupt on these points. Why should anyone even listen if you aren't proposing real plans for saying revolution is the answer without addressing infrastructural questions of how revolution should be produced, what alternatives we would offer, and how we would concretely go about building those alternatives? We need less critique because we know the critique, we know the problems. We're intoxicated with critique because it's easy and safe. So what we need today more than ever is competition or carpentry. State institutions should be at the center of every environmental discussion. They offer the only means to resolve collective action problems. Do it. 16. It is time students of environmental policy directed greater attention to the state. There's an explicit ambition to bring the state back into research. We wish to reaffirm the state as a central object of study. There are good reasons for affirming the significance of the state for the analysis and practice of environmental policies and policies to state structure, political, economic, and social interactions, maintain legal frameworks, and deploy significant economic and administrative resources, systems, and national regulation remain the foundation of the environmental management practices. Environmental non-state mechanisms rest on regulatory foundations, explicit state sponsorship or implicit support. States stand at the juncture of domestic and international political order. They remain the most powerful human mechanism for collective action. They understand to embody legitimate authority. The absence of sweet spot for market interaction. It recognizes the failure of absolute freedom, but still recognizes that market transactions are necessary for sustainability. Rand 14 companies choose to externalize costs if they can. Rules influence the direction of the economy. Evolves. Four principles emerge from the dynamic view of the economy. First, the market's unmatched creative potential. It's a powerful evolutionary search mechanism. The question is, for what second a freely evolving market will not solve climate destruction left to its own devices? It will burn every fuel in the ground. We can guide to the market. Third, we cannot pick winners independent of the market. If the economy is too complex, how can the government pick solutions? Only the market can effectively seek out winning models. Fourth, early action matters because the economy is path-dependent. Changing tech opens new pathways down which the economy might evolve. The existence of a market does not eliminate need for a government. Government is essential to determining the rules of the game. Rules guide natural growth. We need a price on carbon. Market solutions are key to solve climate change. Total breaks with existing institutions are impossible, and including the plan captures benefits of radical social movements. Only regulated markets can resolve environmental destruction. Hoffman 16. Reducing emissions requires systematic change. Social change will never change. Never allows the clean slate that makes sweeping radical change attractive. Whatever we must evolve out of the present. The solution to climate change must come from the market. The market is the most powerful institution on earth. Business is transcend national boundaries and possess resources that exceed many countries. Of business does not lead the way. There will be no solutions. Capital can evolve to address climate. It will require a thoughtfully structured market.
Yeah. All right. What do you do for black people dying right now? So you've posited that black people died like yesterday because of climate change. What do you do to fix that now?
Well, we've made solvency arguments in the 1AC about why alleviating global warming alleviates some of the violence that are experienced by black people. Is your question why the Speech Act itself?
Yeah, what do you do for black people dying right now?
Well, we don't think that reading the 1AC has a material effect.
What do you do for those black people that have died?
Again, is this a question about the Speech Act or the act?
What have you done?
What do you do for black people that have died?
We've proposed a carbon tax. We think that would be a good strategy.
So nothing for those who have died, right?
Cool.
No, I
have a
mean,
question.
it probably
I
doesn't
have a
like bring
question
people
for you.
back.
Why do you feel the need to talk about black people?
We think that that's an important thing that should be considered in the 1AC. One of the worst impacts of warming is the way.
This version of your app against like Harvard or like Georgetown. When I have
We've
y'all
read this
policy
against
on that?
Harvard.
Cool. How long before the first life gets saved?
After the carbon tax is enacted,
Yeah, how long before the first life gets saved?
it's like difficult to say. The Kaufman evidence says that the point.
No. We don't need no
We don't
difficulty.
need
We need
difficulties.
a
We need an
frame.
answer.
Well-
Because time is not promised to black life, as you
When
already
does the first
stated.
life get saved?
Well, I mean, it's impossible to put a
Okay,
specific
it's
to
impossible.
quantify
Okay.
the time
How about
on
this?
that.
So how
about
long
this?
are we
When do you
supposed to
say?
wait?
How about this? When do you say
Well-
the first black life? How about that?
Again, that's an impossible question to answer. The Kaufman evidence says that the effects of the
Well, I
plan
have a
would be
question
experienced
for
pretty
you.
immediately because
What
it
is
creates
the
an
role-
economic burden on people that are polluting carbon.
What is the role of the negative as two black people who cannot contest that global warming is real and coming for us now?
Well, there's like all kinds of things that could negate the 1AC.
So how do I negate the experience that we are inevitably dying from global warming?
Well, I mean, I don't think that's probably is hard to negate, but there's lots of other parts of the
What
1AC
should I
that can
do?
be negated.
That's what I'm asking you. What is the role of the negative?
I mean, you just want me to give like examples of like
Yeah,
DAs or
you know how
Ks?
y'all run
Okay, so
frameworks
you could
and
read like
ask y'all
you
what
could
to
read
do.
like
What
the
do you do?
Kanye, you could read the politics DA, you could read a K of using the state.
How
you
does
could
it-
read a-
Why does the
raps.
images? Why the images of Black Death in the 1AC? Why is that necessary to do your policy? Like, why do you have to point to disproportionate?
If
effects of
everybody
black
is
people?
affected by global warming, why do you isolate black people?
Well, because black people experience it disproportionately
Why do
to
you
white
need
people.
that? Why do you need that in order to pass your policy? Like, did you have to talk about Black Death in the 1AC and then to get your policy passed?
Well, we also didn't have to talk about global warming, but we think that both of those things are
I mean,
justifications
even though that's
for the
topic,
1AC.
Hold on, never mind. Okay, last thing. What is the spillover time? Because I'm assuming that y'all don't do nothing with the Speech Act. It's plain. What is the spillover time, do you think, till, somebody gets safe? Like, when would
So,
the
like-
ballot stop warming? That's a question.
Well, we obviously don't think that the ballot
so
stops
the ballot will
warming.
never
Then
stop
why do
warming?
you need it?
Will you ever stop warming?
We
You
think
ever-
that-
do you mitigate it at all? Adapt?
No, the 1AC in itself, like me reading the
So
1AC,
nothing
we don't
will
think that
happen
solves
as a result of
warming,
the
but
act.
we think that affirming the resolution is a sufficient reason to vote
But
after the
nothing
debate.
will happen, though. That's cool.
Everything's on paper.
I'm sorry, you say it's all on paper?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks.
So I'm gonna go one off, and then I'm gonna go case. I'm just gonna go one off and then case. I will signpost when I'm switching, because it might get a little confusing. If you've never judged them.
Give me 2 seconds, please. Cool. All right, yeah. Never ready.
Where? Yeah.
Look how much African American communities have suffered under Democratic control. To those I say the following. What do you have to lose by trying something new like Trump? What do you have to lose? say it again. What do you have to lose? Look, what do you have to lose? You're living in poverty. Your schools are no good. You have no... 58% of your youth is unemployed. What the hell do you have to lose?
We become poets in an attempt to tether words to righteousness. Our notebooks to social consciousness, sitting anxious and lean back chairs. We sip lattes and news that redeem fired American-made artillery into crowds of folks' dead bodies, pickled by the sun. They lie in countries that we never think about, and we suck our teeth and act for the source to act as a machete. And as romantic as pacifism is these days, I dream of dictators falling headfirst into Carmen. I forget to rearrange, and if I could write this shit in fire, I would write this shit in fire. This ain't poetry, this is rage. Unmuted, this is an end to me, this is a verb. This is my body, this is their culture. Rwanda, Newark, Ferguson, the Red Hood Project, Roosevelt Project. This is the seven hand and clubs against black flags, black boots, and pregnant bellies. This is sterilization, maximum inauguration, iron legs and chains and nooses. This is the war cry. Tell Massa I am coming back here and get my fire stack. Tell him Patrice Limbo, tell him Stephen Bingo, Vinnie Lou Hammer, tell him they have been born again in me, and tell him I have found my mother tongue buried under the rubble of the World Trade Center, and tell him this shit ain't no poem. See, this is me running naked from sugar cane and cotton field, having dropped my firecracker stack. Tell him they can call me karma. I am refreshing the bones of a witch worker, a sorceress, a priestess, a gangster. Tell him that this is the act of segregation. Tell him this is the result of inauguration. Tell him that we have never been invisible. Tell him he has never been invisible. And tell him I am melting the steel bars of prison yards that go flow over him like love. I am returned. I am bloodthirsty. I am veins and hooks and swollen feet and welfare lives. I am the gauntlet thrown down, lives drawn in the sin. I am the political historical delections gathering themselves into textbooks, and I am the need for exploitation and a rice and pancake box collecting the royalties of Aunt Jermaine, my Uncle Ben, and I am in line to smoke a rain dance the tomahawk used to kill the first better. I am a passport to South Africa, a white only sign in the courthouse jails of Mississippi. I am the streets of Benzagi, pocketed parabens and shell casing juxtaposed to faith and savagery. Tell him I am African widespread hymns, American believe ya, peace signs fixed to smoke rifles in the deepest contradiction. And if I could write this shit in Farsi, I would write this shit in Farsi. Tell Massa I am coming back. I am coming back with fire in my knapsack, and tell him I am coming back. See, Black Woman Rage makes us take stage up in front of rallies, leading black families. Black Woman Rage is the thing that booty doing our duty, suffering in silence, calling to the bad eyes and calling on God, dealing with the rhythms and spirits. Y'all take over our rhythms whose hip touches come from full. Black girl lips, Black Woman Rage is a sight to behold, working in the fields. Sun beat on our bit backs and black songs rise to the density of deep sound. Deep songs, see those all past. Can you hear it? Can you understand the meaning of Black Rage, girl? Black Woman song, sad truth, burning tired, awaken as we stretch to the heights of creation. Let go our hand that is offending face and stay in place. What place when we have been all over? Never removed as we feed the masses with milk poems and mindful breasts and asses. Queen is equals on as we sing our small actions through the force that meet us no good. We learn to run home and stand a kendo, give two steps as only blood raging Black woman could. And we don't miss a beat. We pass the streets that other mothers knew. Two beats, two heartbeats, two sides, two souls, two folded. Forms life might multiply. The power of yin and yang, and one woman kisses to the hill of her stream. I'm asking you, raging Black woman, go back to the motherland. You better speak your story, sister. Speak at the way in which rage keeps us still and frozen. See, I am that nightmare in your white pillow. Your itch to destroy the indestructible part of yourself. Call me your own determination, your multitasking shape. You can become friend of your image with envy. I am you in your most deeply cherished nightmare, sculling through your pen cracks you create to admit me into your kitchen, into your filth at night, into your values at noon, your most secret place you hate. You learn to honor me by imitation as I alter all through your greedy preoccupations, through your pitched war and your poisonous refusal to survive. This is a hustle 95, like all program repression, my rage made me feel that I was afraid. It forced me to turn my back on forgetting what to call out those who die. A black person unshamed of her rage, using it as a catalyst to develop critical consciousness to come from her dog. Personalization has to be a real place of existing. The social structures I seek to alone to understanding and recognizing that I was undergoing the process of radical polarization and self-recovery, confronting my rage, witnessing the way it made me move and grow and change. I understand ultimately that I was not have the potential not only to destroy but also to construct. Now I understand rage to be a necessary aspect of resistance. Rage can be used as an act of a catalyst inspiring courageous actions by demanding that black people repress and annihilate our rage to assimilate the risks and benefits of material privilege and white supremacy, capitalist patriarchal culture. White folks urge us to remain complicit in their efforts to decolonize, oppose, and exploit. For all of America's institution omits black women, making her visible blackness a tool decided to make visible her. Our silence in the face of our sister, ourselves, our children does not only mean destruction of us, but of the earth itself. This is Lord in 2007. In silence, each of us face her and her own fear concept of censor, judgment, a recognition or challenge of annihilation, but most of all, we fear the visibility within this country have also, on one hand, been rendered invisible, while also having been visible, rendering through our fight and depersonalization. Even within the movement authority, we have always had to fight for visibility. For even those who have rendered us invisible, our blackness, but only for that to survive as human beings, because the machine will try to grind us away, dust us away, whether or not we are speaking. We can stay mute forever while our sisters and ourselves are wasted, while our children are distorted and destroyed, while our earth is poisoned, mute, and we will still be afraid. Case. An interpretation of affirmative must defend an actual decrease in restriction in private sector emissions that is tied and dependent on the voices and bodies of the speakers. Grounded activism acknowledge being able to make speak. In this case, makes all speech acts political. B is violation. Affirmative has not decreased greenhouse gases, nor do they actually have a plan doing so. They simply give the United States federal government a suggestion of what they ought to do. C, vote negative on presumption. Talk is fucking cheap, and the checks that have been signed by the United States federal government have constantly fucked up everybody's credit line. Voting after this debate will not actualize any disadvantage that have been discussed. B is limits. There's an infinite amount of plans and initiatives and policies that the United States government can possibly do to decrease greenhouse gases. The firm should and could be out. There's a limited way in which the individuals can make change in this room. 3, predictability. Our interpretation means that the negative only has to defend what they or the other person inside this room actually does, not some random harm identified. And D, education. One topic specific education. App interpretation encourages bad debate, including but not limited to plan inclusive counterplans, international BI process plans, and a host of other bad debates. 2, basic bitch politics of bad interpretation that the negative has presented is one that takes you away from the fake bureaucratic systems, the fake policies and initiatives that don't actually affect anyone because they don't actually leave the room. The affirmative must prove that they can actualize any part of the affirmative and plan in which they are enacting. 3, self-politics creates dialogue. Dialogue should be innovative and engaging and talking about those in order to fix the problems that have happened as a result of greenhouse gases. We think that self-politics actually reduce the interest for those who are already on the outside to already want to engage. There is no incentive to engage in the affirmative. Is e-voting issues, erasure minority subjects to debate.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I keep losing my glasses, but go ahead.
Okay, so I think I'm like, understand the case arc, so these questions are more about the other page.
Okay.
So what is the reason for the off-case page, why the app is bad?
I think that the 1AC is very clearly taken a stance that you will talk about blackness in a way that literally degrades and only shows us as far as that we will always be murdered as per the status quo, and you have actually no solvency to why we were getting murdered, how you're going to stop our death, or what to do for those who are already died. We say that rage acts as that internal link for what the fuck happens to black people in the now.
Okay, I want to ask about rage in a second. Can I ask another question about the...
Yeah.
Okay, so... you just made that line of argument about why like the app doesn't solve, but that's not offense, right? So what's the
No,
reason?
it is offense.
Why is
we
it
should
offense?
reject you because you don't solve anything. I think that white people should have a high standard when they talk about black death and what they actually do to resolve it. I think that that should be a high standard because you don't get to utilize the fact that I am dying every fucking day but not do anything to make sure we don't die.
Okay, so...
You get a pat on the back because niggas are dying.
I just want to be clear that your offense is predicated on like using black lives to try to get it back for us.
I'm pretty sure that the 2AC is going to give us a bunch more links, so for right now, then yes.
Okay, alright, yeah.
But there's also other arguments there.
Okay, sure. I now want to ask about the rage argument. So is your argument that the specific performance of rage that you just did is effective, or that rage as a strategy is
I think that what
effective?
I've done is effective, but I
Yeah.
also think that rage at writ large is really effective for black people.
Okay, but not for white people, so it's not.
I think that your
White
rage
rage
looks
is
like
scary
Donald
as
Trump.
fuck.
We've given you an example of white rage looks like.
White rage looks like Dylan Roof. White
Yeah.
rage looks like the white dude that just killed a bunch of people in New York.
Sure, that makes sense.
White
So,
rage looks like student.
Do you think that white rage would be good for us?
White rage?
I mean, honestly,
well,
I would like
I was
to
asking
say
about the rage strategy. That
maybe
you
your
presented,
act
whether
is
or
an
not.
act of white rage because white people got mad in debate and started reading the global warming add-ons of black people because they were mad at niggas. So maybe you are an example of white rage.
So should white people not rage over like the fact that climate change is killing a bunch
When
of
you
people?
don't do anything about it and use
Well,
black people as a tool,
I'm not
you should really,
asking in the
you should
context
really
of
go
what
and
you see.
reflect on yourself. Actually,
I'm not
I think
asking in
that
the context of the
self-reflexivity
one
might
you
really be
So you
good
said
for
not
you.
in context of the one you
Yeah,
said.
not the context of the one you see, just like broadly, should white people rage about anything, or is your argument that that always turns into violence?
What
against white
rage are
people?
you doing?
Well, I'm not saying that we.
Who are you
perform
raging
rage.
with? Who gave you permission to rage? And who are you raging at?
I
These
have-
are all the questions
well-
that I need to know before I can confirm if you it's
It
good
looks
for you
like
to
this
rage.
scholar's been raging on you for a while now.
Well, so is what you're saying then that there
He
are?
said your haircut is fucked up, and your man's really fucked your hair up.
That's racist.
You really need to talk to your barber shop.
Thanks. Okay, let me get one more question in. Is your argument then that there are circumstances where it's effective for white people to rage?
I
but
don't
that's
trust you. How about that?
extremely limited
Rage for white
circumstantial?
people has to be mutually agreed upon by the black people
Okay.
who you plan on raging for.
Audrey,
We actually don't need your help. We don't need you to rage for us.
Well-
That'll be the permutation in the 2AC. You're weak sauce.
Your bell and the bell hooks up this kind of gives you context. You should read it.
Okay, alright, thanks.
Ooh, can you get all this up on
Yeah,
me?
I got you.
You gonna watch? It was more than just spit. It was sweat, spit. I'm mad that's on the live stream. Everybody saw all of that.
You tell me, man.
Oh, God. Oh, I'm on this Robo. I'm Roboing out here.
You want some Sudafed?
Okay. Thank you, boo. I'm out here. Is Sudafed, do they have a different active ingredient than Robo?
Let me look at your Robo.
Okay. You can hear it in my voice, can't you? Like, it's,
Yeah.
yeah. Hopefully I can make it through this shit.
So it's got a different nasal decongestant.
I'm with it. Let's drug me up. Yes, I'm with it. Yes, yes, yes. Oh my God, thank you so much, yo.
Yeah.
We out here. Yeah. You want something? Okay, I'll get you some. We get Yeah. Okay. Or it's got 24 towels. Thank you, y'all. Much appreciated.
Stop rep.
It's 6:51.
Y'all
It's the case page. Yep. There it is. Does everyone have the cards? Good. Everyone ready? The F is not one of Trump's racist appeals. The implication of the clip that played at the beginning of the debate is obviously to vote for Trump, which is obviously bad, but the implication of the F is to do a policy that Trump would hate and would be beneficial for everyone. The F does not say that black people will always be murdered. We have said that the white government could do something to prevent black people from being murdered by warming. Now, the logical endpoint of saying that climate F should not talk about black death is that climate policies which will inevitably be proposed by someone should just not consider black people or the impacts of those policies would have on them, which is obviously fucked up, especially when it is white people proposing those things. In order for the neg to win, they have to have refuted the 1AC, not simply presented a different or better strategy. They have not advanced an argument that negates the 1AC. The fact that what they have done is good or productive is not in and of itself a reason to vote for Rutgers. You can recognize that both our performance and theirs were good and productive things that happened, but the negative has a burden of rejoinder. They have to prove that either the 1AC was a bad idea or that the performance of our 1AC somehow precluded their former performance. We did not say that black women can't talk, share their experiences, or be rageful. The fact that the F did not do those things, it does not mean that the F precluded them from happening in any way. If the negative does not have a reason why their strategy is mutually exclusive with ours, you should not be willing to vote negative because they haven't disproven the desirability of the F or the value of reading the 1AC. We don't link to their hooks of it because we have not told black people to repress or annihilate their rage, which is what that evidence says is happening in the status quo. Their model of debate means that the neg would always win because the F is constrained by a resolution. The neg only has to do something better than that resolution. In their framework, the resolution is intentionally imperfect and flawed, so just allowing them to be better than that obviates any possibility of clash and precludes any possibility of AF victory ever occurring. There's no reason the ballot is key to any of their arguments. You can vote AF and so conclude that what they did was a good thing. It's just not a reason that we should lose the debate. Nothing about voting AF requires you to say that it would be good for them to use governmental institutions or perform in the way that we did, but they have to at least prove that it was bad for us to do what we did. Their argument does not and cannot function as a procedural, does not grounded in any part of the resolution. We will defend plan-focused debate, but remember that our argument is not that this is the only valuable model of debate. We meet their interpretation. We advocated a decrease in emissions using our speech act within this debate, which should obviously be sufficient. Reject proposals not grounded in the resolution. They are predictable. It means that they can always move the goalpost to arbitrarily exclude the F. A debate round is not mutually exclusive with community activism in many ways and forms. This year has changed our outlook on environmentalism, a carbon tax, and individual responsibility regarding climate change. Without debate, we just assume that our first response is always the correct one. We jump to the conclusion that we jump to conclusions. You should not assume that you know the perfect solution to warming. Going into GSU, multiple debates about different strategies can inform how we think about different policy states versus the feds. At the efficacy of courts, a carbon tax versus cap and trade. In the context of this F, an example of it is how the revenue is from a tax is used. We've read evidence that the best approach would be to invest in renewables and also rebate that revenue to individual citizens comparatively better than spending it on deficit reduction or space exploration or the military or anything else. But the only way that scholars can ever come to those kind of conclusions is to debate and argue about the particular details of plans. Remember that none of this says that only plan-focused debate is good. Other models can be productive and they can force those debates to happen when they're at, but to vote neg, they have to win that plan-focused is absolutely bad, or that we did something in this debate which was uniquely bad and the reason we should be rejected. Plan-focused doesn't require them to defend a counterplan or advocate for the government. They can obviously impact our strategy. None of our lives begin or end in this or any other classroom. Reading a carbon tax 1AC does not mean that we think it is the only good solution to warming. We think it's a good argument that we should read in debate, but we can leave debate and this particular debate understanding that there are other solutions to warming beyond a carbon tax that could be productive. Debate does not end subject formation. It just begins at the F's approach of investigating and proposing particular solutions to environmental problems. The most productive locus for debates about political ecology. We can't know capital T truth. They priority should prefer debates contesting different policies and tier. Internal environmental ethics not have special laws and beneficial to the government community relationship with the environment. I don't believe such absolute truth gives some strategy but reverse for achieving environmental goals because the result of the luxury of no any prior needed human experimental policies or environmental argument policies are subject to further debate modification. Beginning to learn we have zero fails and successes. Continue to think the metaphysical will save from the save us from political mistake by guaranteeing the correct general transforming civilization. I'm wary of such guaranteed philosophers just take facilitation of improved methods of inquiry into specific environmental problems. Otherwise, rather than building coalition for environmental goals, after this will end up only preaching to our own choir. The debate is not about whose topic is interesting. They have to win the debate about warming. It's not worth doing to win in order to win students. Interrogating environmental harms through policy debate is critical. Developing sustainable solutions. Coggrave and O'Connor. Insect the main of environmental education to change attitudes. Double change behavior. Behavior is influenced by education. We have stress the need for trying to change young people's attitudes because young people will need to provide solutions. You that today what we've done so far fixing the environment must be prepared. They must be persuaded to act. Now it appears that effective environmental education is crucial. Environmental education can play a key role in like creating awareness and changing people's behavior. Is crucial. The building professionals not only participate but promote the paradigm changes necessary to create a sustainable society. Our particular impact framing in this debate is productive but motivates individuals to confront the violence of doing nothing about their consumptive habits. Markowitz 16 series of psychological studies across the country found that asking people to reflect on future generations can lead them to engage in more helping behavior than the present, particularly when it comes to the and from participants who consider future legacy constantly make decisions greener of the care of future generations, including those we never know can at least powerful to motivate an individual to take action today that will benefit the future. These can be leveraged to promote activities big and small. Thinking more about the future can help people make climate conscious decisions. It is necessary to delocalize our discussions of climate change to adequately account for distant others that are excluded by the next form of impact calculus. They're focused on the here and now of the debate space spatially and temporally exports the danger of climate change onto other populations or systems. Focus on the prerequisite to individual survival back in a Chris, my timer stops in New York. I'm reading the card now. Global dangers, their causes and consequences are limited when locations, big delocalization, risk, kernel, deal level, space, risk, dependent on national borders, temporal risk, long latency, social risk, result of complex processes involving long chains of effect danger. It's exported to these space leading countries and temporally downboard generation, the ports of poor living areas, which a person lacks understanding, which are the most dangerous systems. There a political narrative for climate change that could be for the first time in history of a population, culture, ethnic group, religion, and region in the world is living in the comprehensive future that ends all. If we want to survive, we have to include those who have been excluded. The politics of climate necessarily global may take into account of the others and participate can be protect ourselves effectively from the consequences of climate change. That's cosmopolitan real politics, the politics of listening and global justice risk means anticipation against the immediate stage in this anticipation has a huge mobilizing force to fundamentally change global politics. If few individuals have direct experience of effects of climate change, all this knowledge is indirected as privilege for white Americans. They usually discount the impact of warming on socially dislocated people, and as a recognition of our privilege to confront that in the West, we also recognize that we are big consumers, that the debate community is a large consumer and emitter of carbon dioxide, but debate cannot solely revolve around our lives as individuals. We have to step back beyond that at some point and acknowledge that broader structures exist and something needs to happen to change those. Our political advocacy is vital. I think it has the worst manifestation of whiteness, the privilege to do nothing in the face of climate change. Policy is a means of addressing climate debt that can foster broader structural changes and changes in conscious Molabunda. In 15, climate change may be the most far-reaching manifestation of white privilege, weakened destruction on impoverished people disproportionately have caused the global south recognize climate debt as a continuation of colonialism in the defining future of the present. Climate change, how we address it can determine the future of all life on earth. Climate change is raising class climate privilege. Moral response includes challenging privilege U.S. citizens, white economic privilege, and political agency to challenge systems and entitlements. The hallmark of white privilege is sense of Europe assume we are entitled to use of the ecosphere as a carbon dominance. Is their central feature of privilege dominance, denial, and entitlement, and climate change will continue unless explicitly resistant life lived in ways that cause other people their lives where alternative exists and where political action toward them is possible. It's not a moral ethical shift that the U.S. society does not do nothing to address a powerless may loom threatening to overpower the challenge. And I'm asking the Bush climate change, but seeing what could be a few concepts are more important than moral agency and implementing changes in behavioral, structural, and conscious policies are worthy focus because often of equals of structural changes is also a shape of behavior and conscious public policy advocacy is one great way through which citizens privilege makers come to a matter of climate debt and privilege produced by one is guiding principle for criteria for policy. Something climate policy will be guided by sustainability, environmental equity, economic democracy. National policy would require wealthy countries to take the lead in emissions reductions. At no point in this debate have we said that anybody should be silenced. They should not. They should obviously not be. You could be rageful about a carbon tax and use that to prove it's bad, but rage in the abstract should not be affirmed with a ballot, nor does it necessarily require it. Now, socially situated knowledge is also not immediately and unquestionably valid. Assuming that it is provides no metric for objectively dismissing violent speech acts. It proves that the presumption doesn't always go towards them, and refuting the specific claims of the one I see is better. Ferguson, fitting conflation of epistemology sociology, if not to lead to a party thought entirely on social origins and also reduction, no more than a genetic fallacy pervasive among those who desire to negate that which is European or white on the basis of social situations. Being a member of a subjugated group does not mean that you interpret reality differently from the hegemonic class of all knowledge. Are partisan and partial, and the law logically follows that all are equally valid of all, or that there seem to be no reason why hegemonic perspective should be thrown out. Our standpoint becomes the final arbiter in all disagreements. To note that the knowledge comes from particular cultures and not until it is developed, there is no view from where all knowledge is situated, but does not follow from this that truth claims can only be applicable to a particular group who proposed it. Anything else, Chris? Yeah. Well, do you wanna? You should just explicitly apply that, like, gotta consider everything to their procedural argument, because it directly answers that.
Oh yeah, our argument about the necessity of considering all the impacts of warming is directly applied to their procedural argument, because their implication of their debate is that we only focus on what we as individuals within this room do to solve climate change, or the immediate impact we have on emissions, but our evidence said that we need to consider the broader strategies and how strategy would have particular global implications for people all around the world, because climate change does not just affect people here in this space, not just affect people in this community or any particular town in which anyone in this room lives normally, but affects people all around the world. So we should have some sort of abstracted and global focus when we talk about climate change, and it's good in the context of the AF because we've defended having debates about particular policies. Cross-legs.
Okay. Cool. So what is the litmus for you recognizing your privilege? Because the piece of evidence that you read says that recognizing your privilege is inadequate and that you need to do more. This is the Molavita.
Yeah, you're right that just recognizing it is inadequate, but it says one sort of way that can become more productive is to sort of focus on policies and designing policies in an equitable way to resolve issues of climate change.
What policy did you establish? Because
it's not about, it's more about...
Real quick, let me finish my question. So your 1AC says that we need to know the nitty-gritty intimacies of policies. What policy did you give us the nitty-gritty of?
Yeah, so we read a couple really long cards in the 1AC that talk about a specific carbon tax, the specific price of our carbon tax. We also talk about how we use the revenues in a particular way that is, and those are the debates that we should have, and that plan-focused debates allows you to occur, how we can debate.
Okay.
You said that we need to create a global strategy. When is that global strategy export and transform into resolving climate change?
That's really something that we can't know up front, but our argument is that debate sort of equips, plan-focused debate can equip us with the skills to create those policies that have the potential to spill up.
Into a policy?
Well, our whole point is that without having debates about these things, we can never really know exactly when that happens, but we should always be kind of learning about and learning how to revise and design policies.
Not knowing when that thing happens, but we should continue to have these debates.
I mean,
why exactly, if debate has uniquely been asking questions about climate change since 1972, why exactly is this?
Well, I think debate honestly has not done a very good job of asking questions about climate change. This topic, one, gives us a unique way to access it in ways that we can't normally access it.
You're the first carbon tax act to be read in debate?
No, of course not. But our argument is that there is actually no other team on this topic or any other that reads our specific design of a carbon tax and uses the revenue in the same way we do.
2% increase plan tax? You're not the only one.
Yeah, and no other app uses this revenue in the same way that we do. No one else reads that Roberts card. It's fantastic.
What about your revenue usage gets translated from the debate space? Please explain.
Sorry, what was the question?
What about your policy or your revenue change translates from the debate space?
Sure, our argument is not that when the judges vote for us that the policy becomes enacted by the federal government, but rather that we've engaged in a productive theorization about how policy should be designed and that equips students with the skills to create productive change in society.
What's the litmus for understanding white productivity?
What's the litmus for understanding white productivity?
So do the white people on the panel say, you've done a good job, Mac?
Well, so I think at the end of the debate, the judges will kind of like look at the evidence, they'll look at the arguments that have been made, and they'll determine if they think the 1AC was a good idea or not.
I told you that you have failed, and you are not productive.
Well, I think it's kind of up to the judges for how they like line up and weigh those arguments. But it's like tough to say and tough to answer in this without having heard like the block or the 2AR. It's like hard to say after the 2AC.
Okay, you've already considered that you don't move shit out this room.
I don't know about that. We've had a bunch of reasons why what we did was good.
You don't. Why is the here and now not important?
Well, our argument is not that the here and now is never important, but rather that there always has to be, in the context of climate change, it's important to consider the global ramifications of it because climate change is one phenomenon that affects every person in the world in different ways.
What do you do for those global ramifications?
We equip people within debate with the skills necessary to design policies that would be effective strategy for combating climate change. Sorry, I didn't hear that.
That reaches the globe because people in debate exist.
Well, if people design policies in an effective way, it can.
But you're not effective.
move on from framing. When I do move on from framing, I will tell. Oh, okay, cool. I mean, that's better for me. But anybody else that's not flowing straight down, I'll tell you when I sign first. All right. Our interpretation of the affirmatives have the ground restriction of private sector limits that depend on the body's voice and speaker ground activism and also being able to speak in the space because political we win. That plan focus debate is going to be a bad model for baby several reasons. They say that that's not particular to their model, but you can look at their do it evidence that they extend this cost at the top of that when they see that indicates that the state must be centered in a particular policy, which proves that their policy making only their model debate is contingent on the state being a particular actor that must be at the center of all policy making discussion. Now that links back to all of our offense about why plan focus debate is particularly bad because they don't situate themselves as being a particular agent of change that can take part in mobilizing their policy. Now, each independent reason why plan focus debate is bad would be a reason to vote negative. First, that it does nothing. You should vote negative on presumption because the ballot does not produce any advantage in discussing the debate. As a matter of fact, they are hard to explain why the affirmative vehicle for absolutely besides they believe that they can win that warming is being reduced as a result of the affirmative. That means you should vote immediately negative. That's going to be proved true in the cross when I ask when do your policies become mobilized? When do a climate change or policy actually enacted as a result of getting the balance? They can't point to a particular instance, which means that they are literally just chatting for the point of chatting. Proves that nothing will happen as a result of when they see they nothing happens as a result of when they see me. So you should vote for our interpretation because it's going to be bridging the gap between the exportable politics that we are that we so talk about in debate space. So that's the skills that we can gain to our topic specific education. But I get to that later on. Now, the lack of relationality in their interpretation of debate means they create a banker scholar that judgment of black life and to politics Paris Lawson B. Campbell in 97. A person who speaking position has a little less responsibility to interrogate his relation to the board and disadvantaged people declared interesting. So like activity not only that always has a standpoint, but that always serves as a local purpose referring to the club one's open speak position because so constantly enslavement now of privileging affects people also considered as active publicity systematic misleading and important to come clear about my 50 system knowledge standpoint and the information before I speak in regard to undertake a process of examining scrutiny my representation policy to immerse myself into a central interrogation and determine what my policies and authorizing when the race is next. This ad is going to be asset terrorism. They get to display the particular violence and certain resolution in particular bodies without any engagement with those bodies. This is going to be true in their weaving argument that says that we are able to decrease global warming by talking about it in this space. Just proves that they will never be able to deal with the forms of unique violence that happen to our flesh when we identify that black people are the ones that are dying in this. That's called the impact of this is going to be doubling when it gets separated from academic stuff. I did debate persona where we can talk about these strategies and from their personal life when they go back to wherever the fuck Kansas and they're not be able to resolve it for the instances of local climate change that exists within their particular locality that justify the same type of tragedies like the Hutus and Tutsis being able to kill each one another because the state apparatus condition you need forms of violence, but they never challenge the state and justifies that same type of docile body violence. Now, they have also conceived the marginalized voices this that plan focus and necessitates the United States federal government policy discussion, making instead of individual action marginalizing participants whose views are currently excluded from the policy-making deliberation process. This method displaces the discussion of material violence that forces those students to internalize their oppression of identity and to exclude. They are also in the by either a plan focus debate incentivized all the new plan text with advantages whose disclosed norms will disclose nor prevent negatives from time preparation, or their interpretation really only results in a very small amount of policy which negatives are fortunate and very mundane strategies, and that takes away from time specific education in the first place. Either way, it demonstrates that the quality of their education does not meet the standard of our interpretation because accessibility is the most important impact of the debate. It's also a multiplier for our argument because it needs to explain why how fruitful discussion can happen. It shouldn't happen absent the other team engagement. Additionally, plan focus debate is unfair because it strips negative important advantages, i.e. we can't run our disadvantages based on individual action like activism trade-off or trace activism, this intersectionality, our heteronormativity, fluid emissions, this these are all core negative argumentation. Authentic engagement with debate means that we should be able to create a relationship not only to debate but to the people here, but the topic informed by our identity. Now, plan focus debate is particularly bad for two reasons. First, conditionality is closet. It encourages it because conditionality is voting use because it encourages argumentative responsibility, kitchen strategies, multiple contradictory arguments, and choice of competitive equities. Next is plan includes conflict. Plan focus debate guarantees that plates counterpoints are going to be used. Everybody uses because they still have affirmative ground and for the affirmative debate itself encourages fake plan running which the choice negative ground results in triple decision between the affirmative and the plan counterpoint like a penny savings paper. You cannot pick out everybody's form. They say our interpretation forces the negative only have a small better performance. Our argument is that no, we should be able to contest the particular body by which they're enacting their speech. Topical version of the act. Two particular examples. First is Rutgers CS that first North Sustainability Plan gives examples about how they're engaging in particular meetings on their local level to be able to deal with climate change in the locality. The next example is going to be San Francisco State that starts a community gardening. I've given examples of how you can start a community garden, start a community garden, how you can plant, how you can actually try to incorporate the type of oxygen levels necessary by building trees to be able to push back against global warming. All of these are able to resolve it for the thesis claim of the 1AC by creating mitigation strategy predicated off of the particular flesh means that we have a better
a way in which we can have a embodied performance as per their discussion of the 1AC. They say the scholar must have the particular details, but the 2AC doesn't have any particular details. He literally just read a bunch of cards at you. I'm hard pressed to explain why he even extended the 2AC of the F at the top of the 2AC. None of their revenue arguments, also policy discussion, kind of proves the fact that their policy making strategy fucking fails because it does not get to the deliberation process or the implementation process, which is going to be left out of the discussion of their conversation. It literally just says once you bust the ballot, all these things will fall into place, but it does not get into the context of particular details that their blind evidence indicates is necessary for their policy to not fall flat on its face. Probably means that they not only do they not solve their method of the 1AC, but it probably means our interpretation is better because it forces the body to actually prove the details by which they're engaging in the first place. Means we are the best way to get to the nitty-gritty of the details. Now they say that focus on here and now is bad, but here and now is the only thing that we're able to change in the context of the debate space. It means that you should be able to focus on our argument. They say that we decrease through our speech, like our arguments about what you can do from your particular locality. You're able to decrease the type of climate change that occurs. How the worst it can be when you go back to Lawrence, you are advocating for a carbon tax in your particular locality. Probably means that you should be able to solve that, but you don't do that because you're advocating for the federal government to apply a vacant policy, which will lead back to the disadvantages to the act. But I'll get to that in a little second. They say that their plan focus is bad, but they conceive to do it evidence which is a particular link to their method that indicates that they must start from the state as the center of policy making. Proves that they link back to all of the descriptions of being able to exclude particular discussion from the 1AC. Now, the case debate. We're going to give the burden of rejoinder will be met right here because I'm going to give you 5 things that turn the ass. First is that quick policies leads to back serial policy for your particular communities because serial policy for your particular communities because they create a blanket approach that solves all communities, which creates the disproportionate effects against black people that they're identifying when they see create gradual politics and they say solve the problem. Now, Washington CA is literally getting the vote, create carbon tax and stat code kind of proves that even though the affirmative is not necessary. Now, the Black Death is that they're conceding that the affirmative spotlight on people of color being the justification result of climate policy refines a backup mentality that requires Black Death in order to give legitimacy to their policy. The impact of this is new and more vicious forms of anti-black colonial response that is not centered on climate change, but on some area of negatively impacting the livelihood of poor black folks of color. This also turns the act because the racial hierarchical structure of society was justifies warming the privilege of whiteness. Means the affirmative can make small incremental change but never take steps to mitigate the global climate changes of warming. Proves that the affirmative will necessitate that violence in order to legitimize a structural policy. Now the next is that's going to be a boomerang argument. The affirmative method of climate rebates would be a facade of increasing revenue for citizens, while in actuality that surplus will end up going back into the pockets of the government in the first place. It will also increase the type of electricity prices because companies will have to offset the cost of carbon taxes in favor of inflationary prices. The impact is twofold. First, it's going to be the exacerbation of rampant poverty and homelessness because people won't be able to afford their rent nor their electricity bills. This feeds a vicious cycle of racialized poverty because that causes more deaths per year than global warming, military conflict, and ocean acidification put together. This also turns the gap because these systems of taxation will no longer be effective because too many people will use the rebates to pay for living expenses and people have less uses of garbage because they won't be able to afford it. Now the next is that is sorry. The next is going to be the interim. Oh shit! My time went off the goal. The interim position is that they argue the affirmative argue that a conversation to some better form of energy or a conversion to some more better form of energy. Well, through the F1AC is going to be particularly good, but carbon plants will continue to be safer and be expanding into particular communities. The best example I can give you is the pipeline that goes literally through the city of Athens, Georgia, when companies were literally able to sue people out of their homes using eminent domain. But when the people try to sue back against the companies, which will inevitably be expanded because of the affirmative, it literally caused them to go bankrupt. The impact is that this causes large-scale displacement of the disadvantaged communities of color that can't afford lawsuits to halt the construction of plants on their property and in their community. That also turns the act because it means that even if clean tech or clean coal is a possibility for few routes, the same violence created common policy that raised black bodies in these status quo. Now we have a substantial reason as to why the 1AC is not able to resolve it for its impact, but I don't think that they're giving you enough warrants as to why their specific policy making discussion that they have posited is able to resolve it for the impacts of violence they're identifying. They say that we need to be able to solve it for global problems, but they have no warrant as to why they're able to externalize the space. They say it can happen. We are winning a unique disclaimer about debate that says that debate has already been weaponizing global warming against black people for I don't know how long. Let's have a real moment with y'all judges. You know that the go-to strategy against anti-blackness is to use global warming as a way to offset that type of positionality because it's a global impact. Our argument is that weaponization of global warming proves that the way in which they're going about policy making fails in the status quo. We need to reframe the way in which we're engaging in the type of policy making discussions. Also, it's the wrong form this that if you really want to change carbon tax, you should go to Washington D.C. and try to buddy up with your man Donald Trump. Our argument is that when you engage in spaces like this and try to externalize it, you don't deal with the way in which macro structure can control and determine the way in which politics is able to fail. Any status quo means that you're supportive with your politics and your interpretation fails to solve that for global warming.
Good for cross-sex.
Sure.
First, marginalized voices, DA. Where do you think we've said that marginalized voices or folks have to introduce USFG plans?
So do you want me to go to the link part first? Or you want me
Sure,
to
yeah, I'm asking.
So our link part first is contention on some of the framing evidence that you read in the 1AC, particularly your do-it evidence that indicates that a state-centered approach is the only way in which we can deal with global warming policy. It even goes to the point in the evidence to say that if we don't use a state-centered approach, then it delegitimizes all other kinds of policies.
Would you agree that just like a K that says the state is bad is responsive to that?
I mean, that's a terrible K. You really want us to lose at the NDT like that on camera?
You don't think anyone can win on the state bad K?
State ban is people were in a state ban
Listen,
since
we're a
19...
lot more
Wait.
creative than you
Didn't
will
Bill
ever
Shanahan break that in like 1964? Like, come on, man, it's like years ago. Like I'm saying, we're not going to read the state ban K, but rather our argument is that we should be able to...
So if that is a bad argument, can it be productive for the USFG to pursue policies to combat climate change?
I mean, question.
I mean, I don't think that we're foreclosing that discussion.
You're
I don't
not
think
doing that. You're
I don't
not
think
the
that we're
USFG.
saying. I don't think that we're saying that the state.
Okay,
is,
you say you don't foreclose that, but your interpretation says that an AF can't advocate that.
No, it must be contingent on the body of the speaker. Our argument, our
Okay,
interpretation.
what does it mean for something to be contingent on a body?
Let me answer the question. Our argument is about how you can engage with that on your particular locality. I gave two particular examples. First is Rutgers CS that aligns themselves with the New York Sustainability Plan, which is an effort to stop local abuses of climate, markets and other trucking industries to stop emitting in the community of the city. Another example is San Francisco State. They have a community garden app that teaches people how to build gardens in their community, how to plant, and how to create type of trees.
Okay, yeah, but they don't actually plant the garden. They talk about something to do, but they don't actually plant the garden.
No, they literally bring in pots and plants and teach you how to plant. It's the coolest shit I've ever seen in my life.
The judges how to design a carbon tax. Why is that?
No, you didn't.
No, you didn't. Oh, no, you didn't. That goes back to my argument. For you to be someone that's worried about the details, you were very detailed light in that 2AC.
What are you talking? Okay.
I mean, no. You know what I was talking about. You read a bunch of cards.
I'm actually confused. But
you gave no details about
so what do you think it is? When do you think the AF is sufficiently explained in the details of the AF? How do you know when that has occurred? How can the judge?
I mean, I don't know nothing about carbon tax outside of it creates a revenue. I mean, as the other person on the side, and that's not even you trying to be.
Have you read the 1AC evidence?
So so you go to a town hall meeting, read 9 minutes of a speech, and then I have to go up and look for your speech in order to understand what you talked about for 9 minutes. That's terrible,
I'm just asking. Have you read the evidence? It's quite.
I think
good.
that
No, I'm talking. Why is it my burden to read your evidence? You presented the policy to me.
That was the same answer you gave me when I asked you about rage. You said just read the.
I gave you a bunch of examples before that, like white rage is blowing up Kentucky after they lose a championship. White rage is destroying black communities. White rage is FEMA's response to Hurricane Katrina. I can keep going. White rage is everywhere. Okay. If you want to go to the
do
rage.
You think the AF links to any of those things? Do you think the AF's an example of white rage?
I mean, I gave 5 examples just at the bottom of the 2NC why you're a terrible example of anti-blackness, so I guess so.
Okay.
Alright, I'm gonna go. I get a t-shirt too. Word.
I'll get you later.
Okay. I'm so WDI cool. Alright. But for real, if you haven't voted yet, make sure you vote. We need that spot. Is everybody good?
Hold on a second.
Okay. Did you read that?
Yeah, if you don't mind. Thank you.
My bad.
No, you're good. Thank you.
I was just waiting. Alright, we good? And Black Girl Rage makes us take stage in front of families, leading black rallies. We make it happen, Black Rage. Yeah, we say fuck you and shut the fuck up in a minute. And you realize that you don't have a single answer to the 1NC. You have ignored the entire performance, which just shows how that you will always be a reflection of the system of the political that will literally not say anything about us. Rage is not accepted in the narrative of the political discourse, which is why, in fact, when black people attempt to be rage we don't know when the plan is going to solve. This literally shows that white people are always the, okay, sorry. This shows that black people, whenever we have to wait for the 1EC to happen, this is literally what we call the trick of time. Black people will literally only be accessing themselves and understanding their value as so far as how much time they have to wait for their politics to actually happen or operate. Their politics will always just be an idea than an actual thing that we can lean on. We say black rage is that actual material that niggas can rely on. We say that we will not be silent. We will speak out against the world and its attempts to race us. You have not answered our ability to write this shit as far as this black rage's ability to change its face in the time of the here and now. Your 1EC is based off of temporal understandings and writing this shit in fire means that we burn the original story told to us and we create our new through black rage, which is why we said that masters to be afraid. We destroy the fake imagination, the ideas like policy make them rely on simulations that we can speak to the here and now. This is because we understand the simulation to be a point of privilege that is not promised to us because tomorrow is not promised to us, which is why we are always performing our politics in the here and now. The idea that we can have time to wait or the idea that there is time to waste is going to be that form of privilege that I'm talking about. The idea that there is something in the future or the idea that there is even a tomorrow and that exact act of whiteness. Now the bell hooks card is phenomenal on why this is going to be problematic. She says that explaining the revolutionary potential that rage has is when not repressed is also going to be a consciousness of black people that should be activated. Rage has the ability, in fact, to produce a new form of consciousness that has the ability to create a catalyst and strategy that can be utilized through rage. Rage opens up the forum in the face for black people to speak out against the world in ways that they were told were also impossible. The Audrey Lorde card should answer and should be is going to be a way reason why your debate is one that says fuck me. It says that the performance of black rage is one that should not have been included into the narrative of America that is literally shown through the ignorance of the performance of the 1EC. This card functions an internal link to the affirmative. Lore outlines that rage has a power. Rage has it as a priority of how we begin to understand the earth and the domination properties that have happened because of the environment as well as the social degradation of the world. She said that black rage has the capability of speaking directly to the earth itself because of our relationship with the earth. The impact of Lord outlines is the destruction of the earth. This is also going to be a prerequisite. You will inevitably destroy yourself by avoiding the truth of black rage reveals that our political institution hides. This is because the everyday expression is a response to the flawed system that the government and the affirmative failure to hold any individual response or even do an examination of those individuals affected by the institution and inclusion of the voice, even if they attempt to do a permutation or say that there was one inside the 2AC. I'm just going to make these answers. The permutation is going to be problematic because it always ruins debate because the affirmative will always have the ability to capture the sovereignty of the affirmative that destroys debate because it means that the affirmative will always have chances to transform inside the middle debate. This is also an example like playing the game with someone who was the inventor of the game and they literally keep creating new rules or pieces to the game in order for them to come out on top. This is extremely unfair and moves all forms of the negative. And also that the permutation do both. They won't actually do both because the 1EC refuses to acknowledge the existence of the 1EC. Now I want to get to some of these line by line specific. They say that there is no reason why the negative gets about. I want to be very clear that you will literally get a battle on the affirmation of black death. That's why we said that black rage is going to be a preferable strategy. You say that the desirability of the affirmative should be one that is desired. That means that you all literally entire have the desirability of black death on your fucking minds, which is why we say that your shit was going to be bad and bad. Model debate. We said that black rage really says fuck the white people have literally decided to make black people a little pedestal fucking debate that literally says that in order for us to understand global warming or how to beat niggas or how to utilize our scholarship or our research efforts against niggas is by literally talking about their inevitable death. We have asked you the question, which is what is the role of the negative inside this debate? We say that it is literally going to be rage against this shit. Now I want you to pick the role of the judges, which is all you white people should shut the fuck up and do what the fuck we ask you in the face of this fucking violence, which is to do what the negative says. I think that this is going to be extremely good and damning to them because they want you to fucking pat yourself on the back because they have acknowledged that they are white and that they have been complicit in the system of racism and anti-blackness. I say that this is not enough and that you white people on the ballot how the ballot should have a higher standard for what white people do inside the debate. And if you do not, this shows that your ability to be unethical inside this system will only be another response and reason why black rage exists in the first place. We say that the 1EC is going to be damning to the existence of black life in the status quo.
I can give you this.
so responsive.
We don't.
Okay, 132. 132, yeah. That's fine. Okay, it's gonna be 2 and C, and then the 1 and R.
Is there a new card?
No.
Okay.
Okay, anyone not good? Great. The blocks conceded that we made argument with 1AC advocated a policy in this space using our voices that restricts emissions from the private sector, which means their interpretation. Now, a debate round is not exclusive with community activism. In fact, it's net beneficial for us because it informs our outlooks on environmentalism and causes us to assume personal responsibility for the impact on the environment. The alternative to debates over specific policies is that we assume the first idea that we come up with is the correct one. For example, how do we know whether the states or the federal government should institute an action? That comparison requires a consideration of the plan text, but none of our argument says that only the plan matters, just that it should be a relevant consideration for the decision. In fact, you should note that we never made a counter interpretation, so they have to win that it is bad for us to read a plan about the government, not just that it would be not just that it's net better in other debates to not do that. Now, reading a carbon tax doesn't mean that we are personally investing in the true value of the 1AC. We think that it's a good argument, but that we can still recognize outside of the debate that there are other solutions to warming, because debate is not an endpoint of subject formation. It's not the endpoint of the subject formation. It's the beginning of the insights of the do it argument. They could have negated the state or advocated advocated the status quo, so the inclusion of the do it in the 1AC does not prove that we did violence against them. The Campbell evidence, the 1AC did recognize privilege. It said that white people export violence globally, which is something that you should reject. They say that we do nothing. It's not true. Student debates over environmental issues are valuable and lead to people internalizing the negative impact that they have on the environment. They have to win that debating about warming is so bad that it shouldn't even be considered in order to win, but that's obviously not the case. That's the Kashrov and the Agatar evidence. We shouldn't have to win that this transitions the entire world, just that our model of debate does produce subjectivity that's ethical. That takes out their doubling argument because it proves that our form of debate forces subjects to internalize the negative impacts that they have, forces subjects to internalize the negative impacts that they have there. So that answers their doubling argument. Now they say that it causes us to displace violence. This links more to them. You should extend the Beck evidence. It says that it's necessary to consider global warming as a global impact because of the way that our behaviors exports violence globally and affects populations across the globe. It allows us to step back from the individual position and understand the way that our behavior affects the globe. That means that their model means that they displace more violence because we never consider the way that our actions are exported globally. If we only consider the personal experience in limited instances. Now, no part of the 1AC excludes voices. We just said that state and plan focus are good in the context of the 1AC, not that it's necessarily true for everyone, so it can't be offense for them. The DAs to performance or experience of the 1AC are not core negative ground and are in fact net worse ground because it means that you have to negate the personal experience of somebody else, and that's also not falsifiable, which means that there's a much larger literature base which accesses all of their innovation and better debate arguments better than their interpretation. As they say that Kondo and Picks are bad, you should just reject those specific practices. It doesn't require you rejecting the 1AC because the 1AC didn't participate in that, and they say community garden is good, that nothing about our interpretation or the 1AC precludes that form of that, and it can be good. Now they say the 2AC has no details. The 1AC read is hyper-specific solves the advocate that says that the unique mechanism of the 1AC solves setting the tax based on the social cost of carbon, redistributing that money based on distributional impacts causes individual behavioral changes which they have not contested. The solvency argument of you should extend them in tier evidence. It's necessary to debate the specifics of comparative policies in order to weigh their impacts. Now the 5 turns case arguments at the bottom of the 2AC. The first argument, the F's not a quick fix. It's a structural change in the economy. It's more likely to lead to serial policy failure under their interpretation because we don't consider the policies that we advocate or compare them against each other. The Black Death DA alternatives worse because it says that white people should not consider black deaths in their impact calculus. Our argument doesn't require black death. It says that black death is bad and something that should be rejected. The Boomerang argument, there's no evidence or warrant for this argument. The F fiats that money goes directly to the public and it's immediately solvent. The expands business argument. The F is in a shift to clean tech. It's not a shift to clean coal. There's no reason or evidence that says that exports violence onto marginalized populations. The weaponized policymaking argument. The F doesn't weaponize policymaking. Our argument is that the F is normatively desirable and that competitive debate is a fun and competitive game. Not that a carbon tax should necessarily be implemented, which was the argument I extended above. But all this also proves that they can negate the 1AC without performing violence against themselves. The one and R. In order to vote negative, you have to conclude that the 1AC was negated, not simply that the negative has advanced the good or valuable argument. The negative has not presented an argument that disproves the normative desirability of the 1AC. Them winning that their performance is good or effective is an insufficient reason to vote negative. You can recognize that the negative is good without saying that voting F silences their perspective. They have to win that the 1AC precludes their performance in some way, but this isn't true because we have not said that black women should be silenced or that they shouldn't be rageful or that they shouldn't share their experiences. And if in fact we intentionally did not impact her on any of these things, the fact that we didn't explicitly endorse those things in the 1AC does not mean that we preclude them. For example, they could say that a carbon tax disproportionately hurts the black folks or that it would not sufficiently check against the worst impacts of warming, and in doing so use personal standpoint traits and a localized perspective to their case. The crucial difference is that in this debate the bloc is basically silent on whether or not the affirmative strategy is productive in terms of its actual attack on global warming. Their model debate causes the negative to always win because the F's constrained by the resolution and the negative isn't, so the negative can always find something outside of the resolution that's better than the resolution, which obviates clash and precludes any chance that the app would win the debate. Now, even if we lose all these arguments, you can compare the performances and still conclude that you can still vote app, but we have offense for our performance too. And if you think that performances themselves are more mutually exclusive, then the logical extension of that argument is that debaters should never talk about warming or debaters should never analyze policy, which means that our app is still offense against their performance. They have not extended an argument of why the ballot is necessary for any of their offense. Yeah, we didn't explicitly extend a perm, but all of our arguments prove that you should not vote neg on the K. Now, the role of the judge argument is arbitrary and self-serving. You should not have a higher threshold for us. The Ferguson evidence says that all epistemology is socially situated, but that doesn't mean that ours is necessarily bad or if it comes from a bad source.
No, I agree. Does 8:30 make sense to y'all?
Okay.
We'll go 8:30. Yeah.
We'll go with 8:30. Sorry, y'all.
No, you're fine.
So you're flowing straight down? Are you flowing straight down as well?
I am not. I am.
A K flow and a K flow?
Yeah.
Do you also have a K flow and a K flow? Alright, so it's gonna go the proof. There will be an overview on case and then to the K. That's fine. Alright. Not going for an affirmative interpretation. However, the affirmative method is particularly violent to black bodies in this application. We have 3 reasons to vote negative. First, going to be the black death. I don't think they have a good answer to the one here. They say that the alternative black death is that we must reject it. We must be a way to deal with it. Our argument is that they affirmative spotlight on people of color being a justification for resolving the climate policy. Reapplies the funds of bank mentality that requires black death in order to pass policy, i.e. the image of black death, the image of suffering will be at the top of the impact calculus of the 2AC and the 2AR. Just proves how they use black bodies as fungible pawns in order to get their policy making passed. Now, the impact of this is that it makes new and more vicious forms of anti-black and colonialist violence that are not centered on climate change, but on some other area, negatively impacting the livelihood of poor folks of color, i.e. they're able to shift the forms of violence away from dealing with climate change to other aspects because they make anti-black violence seem more serious because they require unique forms of death in order to mobilize a politic. They also concede this turns the act because the racial hierarchical structure of society is what justifies warming. The privilege of whiteness means that the affirmative can make small incremental change but never take steps to mitigate the global climate change of warming, and this is going to be particularly true when they say that nothing is able to leave this space, that we are never able to create a policy, but we need to keep learning about it in order to eventually create a policy. This is exactly what reifies and allow for the exacerbation of unique forms of anti-black violence and global warming to continue because whiteness can become situated in a position of comfortability where they no longer have to mobilize a unique form of politics, and even also it means also that also means that you don't get the ballot because it affirms the fungibility of black flesh in order to justify your particular policy, proves the thesis claim that turns your affirmative. Now, the next impact is going to be the electricity prices. This, as they say, the affirmative money goes directly to the pockets of the people because they fiat it. That's not responsive to our arguments. Indicates that basic economics tells us that companies will offset the tax in order to make a revenue by increasing the price for basic necessities like electricity because that's what they use fossil fuels to burn for in the status quo. That probably used for even if the money goes to the public. There's no warrant as to why people who can barely pay their bills in the status quo will be able to survive. The impact is going to be the exacerbation of rampant poverty and homelessness because people won't be able to afford both their rent and their bills. This feeds a vicious cycle of racialized poverty that causes more deaths per year than global warming, military conflict, and ocean acidification put together. Now, I don't think that the 1 year have an extension of their impact claim in about global warming, which probably means that you should refer our impact. We're giving comparative analysis about the way in which structural violence happens on a daily basis, which also answers back the argument about the here and now that indicates that we don't focus on the way in which structural violence is able to affect black bodies in particular and create unique forms of anti-black and colonialist violence. That means that they will go under the rug and become more insidious, which means the affirmative justifies the unique forms of violence, to go underground and to be sustainable in the world of their politics. Now, the last impact I'll go for is the displacement argument. They say that they resist the green technology. That's exactly our link debate that indicates the affirmative will create a conversation or conversion to a better form of energy, but that will literally cause the displacement of particular communities. The example I gave was the community in Athens, Georgia, that was literally separated because of an increase of a natural gas plant that was supposed to be transitioning to the use of green energy, which literally went through the middle of a fucking community, and when they tried to sue, it literally caused the people to become bankrupt because they cannot afford lawyers to be able to push back against corporations. This proves the affirmative as a market sanction will incentivize the displacement of black community. Now, that also turns the act because it proves that clean tech, even if it's a possibility, reifies the same forms of violent trends of policymaking or climate policy that sustain the uncomfortability of whiteness to be able to generate more global climate change in those particular sectors in the first place. Now, arguments that we are able to resolve this, the alternative will solve 100% of the affirmative. The reason why is because in the face of inevitable death that is awaiting black people, rage gives us the catalyst for how we should act in the here and now. Rage gives us the ability to transform language into action. We have the capability to create as well as destroy the rage with that. This means that we are using our literal bodies to find refuge in the world. Despite the action and ability to solve rage creates mobilization and initiative within black community. This is a prerequisite for politics because the current model excludes voices of black women and ignores them. This is a prime example of the 2AC when we say our ability to fight that shit in fire, conceptualize how we understand the world as we know it, to break away from the control of white dominated spaces and knowledge production that are able to displace the ability for black women to engage in certain spaces in the status quo. Additionally, they literally have no offensive reason. They say they talk about politics or their detail, but our problematization was the lack of a policy deliberation process in which they get it implemented. The context or framing should be the context or framing should be when you go to a town hall meeting, but then require the people to engage with you in the first place because you have not given enough detail to
why your policy should be implemented proves that they're part of a stale-based policy making that has led to the same type of detrimental conversation and debate that don't challenge the paradigm in the first place. Now we have two links to the criticism. The first link is going to be a trick or time link that indicates the way in which they articulate their policy says that we will eventually solve in the long run. Actually, they don't even give you a time frame by which they're able to solve that for Black Death, but they just tell you to wait on it. It's exactly a tactic of the political that says that they must just wait on the retribution, which causes the exacerbation and the elongation of particular forms of violence that happen as a result to make Black people become particularly connected to the instances of politics that justifies the forms of violence that Nicole talks about in 1 and R. Now, the second link is going to be the particular silence of the Black woman. As per usual, they ignore the 1 and C performance. They don't get to get up and just say, we don't think there's anything wrong with the rage. You go about their business. You conceded that it is the better method for Black people who are often excluded, such as Bobby Rush, for example, Barbara Lee, who literally was the only person that pushed back against the invasion of Iraq because they had no mass direction, but she was literally qualified. They're literally silenced. Now, the role of the judges, our argument is that you already are in control of the particular dialogue by which Black Death is able to be mobilized in the status quo, which means that you should vote negative, only affirm an absolute negation, because your affirmation will justify the elongation of particular forms of violence to be done to the Black body. They say that even if they lose, it's about compared performances. No, arguments that they don't create a policy. They can't generate that kind of offense of creating a policy because nothing will happen as a result of 1 and C. That's why we must start from a rageful rejection of the 1 and C in order to mobilize and catalyze a politic that is not going to be more inclusionary of the forms of excluding voices that allow for Black Death to continue in the status quo.
132.
Everyone good?
You cannot vote negative solely because Rutgers' performance in this debate was good. It does not disprove the value of the 1AC. We even advanced an argument about the nature of debate. The F has a burden of proof, and the negative has a burden of majority. They have to win that the 1AC was bad in order to win the debate. It's not a permutation in the sense that we're saying that the 1AC and 1AC can somehow be combined. It's simply an argument that their performance is not competitive with ours. Mutual exclusivity requires them to win that reading. Our 1AC either precluded their performance from occurring or somehow has made things worse, but they will not win that it was able to do. We made a strategic choice in this debate not to negate or impact or any parts of their performative strategy which avoids the large majority of their offense. We have not told Black people that they're raging up along this space. We have allowed them to perform. Have simply argued that it has not risen to the level of a reason that you should vote negative because the performance has already taken place, which means that any benefits to it or dissents to it have already happened. There's zero argument why the ballot is key other than a vague reference that the judge should vote for them because they have told them to. That's arbitrary and self-serving, which was a 1AR argument that was conceded and proves that their model of debate means that the AF can never win because the threshold is just to have a slightly better performance in the effort to literally say that they should win because they have said they should, which is fundamentally tautologically obvious. They can obviously win on the arguments about a carbon tax or the 1AC being bad, but to win, they have to win that those outweigh either the desirability of a carbon X or the value of the 1AC, which the arguments about to make will prove that they're unable to do. Now, going for any of these case turn arguments that they have made is a double blind with their arguments about our inability to access the desirability of a carbon X's offense, because those arguments all assume implementation of a plan outside of this debate, which means you should obviously get to weigh offense predicated on the implementation of that carbon X, because the 2NR has gone for arguments that have said the implementation of a carbon X would be bad. So obviously the desirability of the carbon X was something that is offense against them, because their argument would say that that's true, that the carbon X is not something that should not come into being. They can see that the carbon X solves warming and solves extinction, which obviously outweighs the terminal impact to any of their stuff. The pivot in the block to the pivot in the 2NR was totally new and super unclear and unpredictable based on things that were said earlier in the debate. The block advanced two arguments: one, that we should not focus on the particular plan text that has been better, the implementation of the plan, and also the argument that there were instances of the plan which the implementation of the plan would be bad. And the 2NR condensed down to just one of the 2NR just condensed down to just one of those arguments. So obviously you should allow some of these new arguments that our ability to weigh the F. They never said that in the 2NC that the turns case arguments were solved by the alternative, which justifies this pivot to say that we get to weigh the desirability of a carbon X versus the alternative going for offense about why implementation of a carbon X would be bad, means we obviously get to weigh offense about why the implementation of it would be good. Again, they have conceded that it solves one which outweighs any marginal impact to the spike in electricity prices, or a reason why the discourse of it, or a reason why a particular discourse would be bad. You can just vote F on that a carbon X would be good, on a carbon X, you can just vote F on the fact that a carbon X would be good because they did not go for either their framework interpretation or a split-up argument. They have not advanced an interpretation for what debate look like other than simultaneously saying we get DH to the F, but you don't get to weigh the F, which makes no logical sense in the absence of a negative interpretation. They also have not made an argument that they want to see would not be able to split up, because our argument has never been literally voting F implements a carbon X, but rather that you're just deciding between the desirability of two strategies, and you can conclude that if you conclude that the performance of the one of the negative was mutually exclusive with that of the 1AC, then you can obviously vote on a carbon X outweighs, because they have said that those two things are fundamentally mutually exclusive. Now the line by line on the case page, the Black Death DA arguments, we don't even if we have highlighted those deaths, we do not lead to net more of those, because implementing a carbon tax and evaluating the desirability of such a tax would mean that those deaths are not something that does not take place, and we would lead to in a world where a carbon tax was implemented would lead to net less black deaths. And even if they win these arguments that it is somehow a form of fungibility, they have not explained how reading a carbon tax in debate causes somehow more anti-black violence to be done. This is not something they've introduced evidence about, or even a warranted argument why that would be the case. It doesn't turn the case, even if white privilege is what justifies warming. Only a carbon tax is sufficient to be able to. Only a carbon tax is something that would be sufficient to be able to resolve that voting after affirmative does not affirm black fungibility. It just says that a carbon tax would be a good idea because everyone would die in the world of everyone would die from climate change, but also it is disproportionately affecting black people. Now that's not affirming the fungibility of black people or affirming that those people are dying, but rather saying that those deaths are something that should not occur, and that would be something that is good. The alternative is obviously results in a world where white people can never talk about the disproportionate impact that climate change has on black people or other marginalized groups, because they would just say that's always fungibility. You're just trying to use those. No, we are trying to say it would be a good thing if we were unable to ever read this app again, because climate change was resolved and those people were not dying as a result of it, which is why the app is a good idea. Now the argument about companies just offsetting the price of the tax, they have no evidence that the plan would increase electricity prices. Our Kaufman evidence, which was extended to the 1AR, says that the plan would immediately lead to renewable power generation, which means immediately lead to the deployment of renewable energy, which means there's no offense in the interim, but there's no offense in the interim predicated on spiking price, and they haven't articulated a terminal impact to that other than that energy would be slightly more expensive. But again, to evaluate any of these arguments requires the implementation of a carbon tax, which again is a reason why the desirability of it is something that we should be able to weigh against argument. Other displacement arguments, the displacement argument also doesn't rise to the level of net offense. They have no evidence for the plants leading to shift to natural gas. There's also a tax on CO2 equivalent, which means we also tax that natural gas. The app doesn't preclude the ability of rage to occur, which means it's able to solve all of their arguments about why voting app can solve all their arguments about why rage is good because their performance has already occurred. But nothing about voting app requires you to negate the value of their performance of the thing they did within this debate. Now the thing they did within this debate, the status quo excludes black women, but nothing about the affirmative does that, because it didn't preclude their ability to read any. It didn't preclude their ability to read any of the arguments. The trick of time linkage, just a time frame argument about when does the app solve. The app would solve immediately, which is our piece of Kaufman evidence. If we get to weigh the app, then we obviously get to access immediate solvency, but we also access all the benefits to the app immediately too. The Coggrave evidence, Markowitz-Beck evidence, and Mintier evidence are all net benefits to the app, and say that it's good to debate about specific policies, that it's good to debate about the global implications of climate change, that it's good for students to focus on sustainable solutions because that creates productive forms of policy making, which means the introduction of the app's pedagogy into this debate was something that was
productive because it would lead us to make more sustainable decisions and be more conscious about things like climate change, which obviously outweighs the impact of any of their arguments, which outweighs the impact of any of the pedagogy side arguments. They're going for the role of the judge was arbitrary. The role of the judge was arbitrary and totally unwarranted, which is an argument that I made at the top.
Good debate. Good debate. Do you all want to see this evidence that I have? Okay. Okay.
If you want me to, I can just mail you the cards so you don't have any more paper. Unless you want more paper.
We'll just give it to them on paper. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll just hand it to them.
All right, that's nostalgia. Let's go. Yeah, that's a little too.
All right, well, let's hack. When you get to dance for the camera. Thank you. Thank you.
No doubt. Thank you.
It was a thing. Something I wanted to do before my last year.
Pack it up. Pack it up. That's what you're getting.
It's just really one of my favorite tournaments. Like, I would love to do it. The vibes are just like everywhere.
If I got 530s, I might like it too.
Whew. I was in there sweating, y'all.
Fire.
Sweating. I know you got 530s.
I got them.
No, okay, cool. I took them off. They couldn't give out two.
Does anyone need a compiled doc? I know there weren't like a ton of cards, but I can put them together if you want to.
I think my bronchitis is actually acting up though. It just feels like it.
Okay. Well,
Like, I don't think it's a cold. Like, I think it's the bronchi.
you know what?
I know why. I need to stop. What color you want to recharge? So I can put on the pencil? Now you're trying to still sleep?
You know, Nick. If you up, if you down.
up like most of the space. Hi, Bo. Nothing much. How are you? Good. How's life treating you?
Oh, you know, just a little happy to be done. I'm the top of the team though.
Yeah.
They're doing quite well without me.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. Happy to be in the D3, as usual.
Alright, you want to go back up? Cool. That's quick.
I just wanted to show them something.
Yes, you know I keep it old school. The last of the era. Are you done yet? Oh, okay. I just didn't want to talk to you without you being done. Is that can I see your shirt? Is that like a
It's just so there was this website on Etsy that was going out of business, and so they just sold all their dozen shirts for $5 a piece. So I'm calling for them. So I just
Yes.
a variety of shirts.
Yes. We have some shirts like that at the WI, and they're like baseball jersey kind of shirts. They're hella dope, and they're like green and white. Yo, y'all don't even understand how much WI apparel I have. Like, I got all the outfits we need. I got everything. We got so many t-shirts, sweatshirts, different versions of things, different bags. Like, that's really my highlight of the summer, is when I get to go to the bathroom and just put a bunch of different stuff. Like, I have all sorts of WDI water bottles, stickers, bumper stickers, like everything. Yes.
So see if you guys.
He should. This is the dopest. I'm not gonna lie. The baby blue was pretty poppin'. At first, we were gonna do a maroon color. Oh, sorry.
Okay. Congratulations, both teams. Decision Frio with a negative from Rutgers. I can go first. I think that this is a very close debate, and I can talk about strategy things after the other two judges talk about, maybe ways in the future to make this round easier for y'all. I think that the reason I think it's a close debate is I think that I agree with the affirmative that there's not much in the 2R that talks about how I should evaluate, while there was in the rest of the debate, whether or why debate should not be centered on the desirability of a strategy, whether or not it's just it's not just it can only be a plan, but I don't think there's really a discussion of why these critiques of their presentation of Black Death and the 1AC, why that should be considered before, or how that should be considered against when deciding what strategy is better. I think that the argument that I ended up voting on, that I think that y'all need to read cards on in the Tracy, or just need to explain the answers to that are the 1A and 2R is just electricity prices just said. I think that y'all, your response to this is the 1AC Kaufman evidence says that you'll go transition to renewables. I think the problem with that argument is that the warrant for the Kaufman evidence, one of them is well, the reason that people will start using less electricity is because in the short term you'll increase prices such that they'll be forced to do that. The problem is that I think that they've set up a pretty clear impact framework that in the short term what that would mean is that people can't pay their bills because they're the electricity they have to use to survive those prices are going up so much that they can't pay their bills or their rent. They have to make those kind of decisions. I think there's also an impact framing argument here. Actually, a couple of them. They make this argument that it describes cycles of poverty. They make the argument that kills more people than global warming. You have to question some of these things. Obviously, poverty might kill more people than global warming, but the AF doesn't lead to, doesn't uniquely cause that poverty. They also make the argument why I should prefer structural violence impacts because it's more insidious and harder, that we don't recognize as much. I think there needs to be a counter impact explanation. I think the 2R is correct that in the 1AR there isn't one. You guys talk about why your strategy, why plan focused debate is productive, but not really just why. I kind of agree. There's not much discussion just about the advantage. Now, I mean, and it's not like they ever had an impact defense, but I would talk about if you win all these other arguments, why is your AF more advantageous when they are spending a lot of time in the block reading disads to the implementation of the plan. And I think they've made an argument for why that you increase structural violence, maybe not a whole lot, but a little bit, and why I should prefer those impacts because they are immediate and they are more insidious, so where they're more likely to be ignored. So I think that just a counter impact framing would, given this 2R, I think just countering that impact framing would probably make me vote affirmative. There are other things in the debate that kind of give me pause, and I think that's that's a ballot that I was able to write while deciding a lot of the framework questions about should this be about desirability of the app in your favor. I'm not sure. I may have had to spend more time thinking about some of these other arguments about whether you actualize anything by reading the 1AC. But I guess I kind of agree with what the app is saying is that if that's the case, that those arguments don't really go that well together, because if you win your argument that nothing happens as a result of the AF, that also the link goes down proportionally with that. If the AF doesn't do anything, then the impact on electricity prices or the impact on displacement would also go down. And like I said, I think that they're winning that it should be about desirability. So I think the electricity prices just that outweighs the AF.
So you think the small? Well, I've got two questions. One, what do you think about the argument that the AF leads to rebates so that people can then pay?
This is something also. Just I think that if the 1ER the plan mandates transition to renewable energy, and this could be a misflowing. And I understand the plan text leads to rebates. I think that they've also answered the rebates argument by saying that that companies that again, and I kind of feel like there's no evidence for this. I think we need to have some counter evidence to this. That
Well, we do the whole 1AC.
the counter to the evidence that companies will
Well, I don't understand how you can. I don't understand how you can make how you've come to the conclusion that the spike in electricity is greater than the rebates that the app provides.
I mean, I think that you should they basically made a dissent argument, and your response to it's like they don't have any evidence. And then I think
also
y'all should,
said. So did you disagree that the 1AR said that the app fiats those rebates?
I think if you have to transition to renewables, but it seems like that
So sorry, you don't think the 1AR made the argument that the app leads to rebates?
I mean, I think we need to talk about why the rebates would be larger than the spike in electricity prices, and like at what point do those rebates then people will be able to recoup their costs? Like I said, I don't think this is because I'm not sure how much of the energy price spike there is. I voted on this dissent because I think you drop an impact framing argument that you call structural violence, and that causes is a bigger impact than death. That it's more insidious, and that it kills more people than poverty, which I think I feel is kind of a silly impact framing argument. What?
You don't think we have an argument that warming also causes structural violence?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I just do not think that argument in the you say that warming causes extinction. I think that you are. No, I do not think you're comparing those arguments in the 1AR 2AR. No, I think that the impact framing
For what it's worth, I'm 100% with him on this, on all of these questions.
Yeah,
my flow matches his flow for what it's worth.
No,
Do you not think the 1AR made an argument about rebates?
I think that the 1AR made an argument about rebates. I think that the way that you describe that argument as it interacts with the way that they describe that argument is unclear in terms of how it would function as a takeout for
I'm more okay with that.
Yes, I absolutely get you to rebate. I guess what I was trying to say is just like they read a diss ad, and I think it's just like a pretty straightforward diss ad, and that I think that if this was a different kind of debate, that if you treated this ad without with those kind of answers and that time explaining your no link argument, I wouldn't find that sufficient in any other debate. And I think that they read a diss ad and an impact framing argument that you should just I don't know. It just seemed like you were not spending much time talking about how the mechanics of the rebate work. And yeah, fair enough. I mean, some of your evidence that says that the rebate would be more than the short-term cost of electricity prices, but I think that you all should spend more on time on that argument.
I had a question before we move on. You said that you don't give away to the environment and desirability strategy. In Twitter, I tried to shift gears and go instead of testing whether or not desirable or not, just to go for the act is not because it's bad. How do I make that more?
Well then that's fine. But I just think that you're in a tough spot, and I think that if they kind of win an impact framing, I think spend a little bit more time on impact framing. I probably think that that the app is a better idea than it is a bad one.
And the last question is, in that framing, if they win an impact framing argument, how do I make the argument about requiring black suffering or images of black suffering? How do I make that more persuasive within that?
Well, I don't think it's a link to the plan. I think it's a link to the way they frame their 1AC, but I don't think it's a dissent to the app. I think it's definitely offense for your procedural argument that you don't go for it, but I don't think it's without a framework argument for why they should also have to own the way they frame the 1AC. I don't think that's a. I mean, it'd be a tough to persuade me that that's something that they should have to accept the baggage for. I think that you do a great job in the block talking about when you're going for this argument about why plan focused debate is bad and they should have to talk about those things. That's a whole other question. But I think that I think with the tuner that you give, I think you have to that would have to be a whole other section of the debate talking about why it should be about more than whether or not the app is a better strategy than rage.
Okay, cool. That's fine. Thank you.
I think I agree on the electricity prices to an extent. I think the impact work is done way too late in the 2AR. I think the 1AR hedges their bets too much on the negative going for more of the framework portion of the debate, and as a result, you didn't set up a lot of the impact framing stuff that the 2AR is doing. And so I think that kind of puts you behind the curve a little bit. I think the other argument that I find to be compelling and problematic to the affirmative is the Black Death dissad. I'm not sure if there's a particularly great answer in the 2AR to this, other than kind of the desirability of the plan stuff. I'm not sure that's ever contextualized to that link argument, or ever is like desirability of the plan means that you don't weigh this link argument. But I think that the Black Death disad is just the kind of places the spotlight on black suffering in order to get policies passed, makes people fungible. I don't think there's much of or any type of answer to this in the 2AR. And as a result, they do have a separate impact to that they causes a unique form of gratuitous violence. And I think absent some sort of impact framing argument that Milosh was kind of talking about earlier, it makes me feel pretty comfortable voting on this. I do agree that the electricity prices disad wasn't handled particularly well. I do have the rebates argument, but I also agree with Mia that kind of needs to be more so contextualized and more time spent on how the rebates gets you out of the link to the electricity prices. I think the 2NR is actually kind of good on this, where even if you are correct about carbon tax and its ability to maybe have a no link argument to electricity prices, rather that the electricity companies will build the price into the electricity, which means that those people can't pay for their bills because it causes those rates to increase. Whether or not that is true, I'm unclear, because there's not much of an answer to that in the 1AR or the 2AR. But absent that, I think that that's also where I fall. I will say I thought I was voting affirmative until after the 2AR happened. I thought that the 2AC was strategic in not giving them a lot more offense. But I think that the AF kind of hedged their bets too much on the framework debate versus the K debate, which prevented you from getting back into it, the 2AR.
Okay. So my first question is sort of about the new 2AR impact framing. What did you think of the 2AR argument that the block advanced two contradictory sort of impacts in two frameworks that can't coexist with one another, so it's impossible to predict which one they're going for, which means you should allow some new
I don't
2AR
really
impact
think
was.
that the 2NR made a pivot that was new or unpredictable.
When they kicked the argument that said no.
They kicked an argument that said that politics should be tied to the body. I don't think that
we shouldn't evaluate the consequences of the plan. And went for
I don't think they said that you shouldn't evaluate the consequences of the plan. The bloc had made a disad to the AF via the electricity prices, and had made all of these link arguments I just said I voted on.
But they also made a
That's not a
argument that said
pivot.
that debate shouldn't even occur because it's a plan focus. So they advanced
I don't think they said that debate shouldn't occur, and then simultaneously I don't think that happens. Regardless, you got to answer link arguments. I don't think you did that.
Yeah, I largely agree with both of them. I think that ultimately my decision is that that at the end of the debate, even if I let you weigh the 1AC, which I think you're right that you do get to weigh the 1AC, I think that their arguments function as a sort of solvency defense, solvency takeout type argument on this discussion of if policymakers are sort of liars, policymakers who don't do things that can help communities of color. Their example of these rebates, price discussion, electricity prices discussion is just an example of sort of the way that the government tends to reframe and change unclear policies so that they are not helpful towards people of color. So I think that the impact of sort of your 1AC, which I honestly don't think is particularly well extended in the final speech. I think that you say a bunch of times that you get to weigh your 1AC, but then I don't think that you actually spend a particularly large amount of time actually weighing your 1AC. I think like you make a time frame argument maybe, but you don't really make very many discussions about sort of the way that that impact interacts with the disads that they're reading. So I think that they have sort of this disad, I think they have some solvency sort of takeouts, and so I think it's a fairly straightforward decision there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good luck to you all.
Can I ask a couple questions?
Yeah.
So, one thing that's kind of frustrating for me is just like, I guess the reason that we didn't extend, or that the 1AR was not more clear on the impact framing stuff is just because they weren't really contesting that. So, do you think that the remedy to that just has to be that?
I guess.
Well, I guess my question is, you agree that we still get the impact warming, even though I didn't like explicitly say it in the 1AR, right? Because the block didn't contest it. It's just an issue that we didn't do the framing early enough for the comparison between them.
Yes.
It's not like an issue of we like made a technical drop so we don't get away the advantage. It's just that we did not set up the framing early.
Yes.
Okay. Alright.
Yes,
Thank you.
that's right. Maybe a few sort of other thoughts that I have. I think that I'm pretty compelled by their statement that you read these cards about having to engage in sort of a nitty-gritty sort of political discussion, and that's part of the advantage of reading your affirmative. I think that it is actually a little compelling to me that you don't really describe sort of the way that your policy happens. I think that maybe getting into sort of your plan a little bit more, being able to answer those questions in context would be really helpful. So like,
Which ones?
like the ones where they talk about how long will it take for things to happen.
What would you envision the answer to that kind of question be?
Well, I don't read your app, but like maybe a particular.
That seems like a pretty high burden to have a time
Well, right,
frame
but,
for
like-
when the first life was saved.
So like you could give a hypothetical answer though that you could surely there are time frame cards that you would read in a policy debate that have a hypothetical time frame argument within them. Don't you?
No.
I mean like.
Not really. I mean, that's just not really the way that it works. It's
I mean,
like our
okay.
entire argument is that it's causing ongoing violence, and that by reducing that, we create a linear shift that decreases that violence.
Well, then why is it? I don't know. It's immediate. Then say it's immediate. Just say
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I guess
people,
maybe-
Well, I did, but then I said that we've read evidence in the 1AC that it was immediate, and then they like followed it up with when you save the first black life, or when you save the first life, and that how can we quantify when we save the life? Even if we can quantify solvency, it seems like an impossible threshold to say that we need to quantify when we start saving.
Yeah, and to be clear, like this isn't. So I'm not saying like had you had that answer, that was like the key to winning the debate.
I'm
like I'm just saying.
I'm not being after. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be aggressive. But
No,
before-
yeah. I guess it feels very unclear in process, and maybe a part of that is because I don't judge very many sort of cap and trade and like policy type style arguments, so I don't have this sort of background. I don't do policy work as much. But if I was to be able to sort of walk into a political meeting and talk about your affirmative, it would be hard for me personally to be able to really describe the way that you do that. I think that those discussions could be a little bit more in depth. I don't know if that happens in Cross-Ex. I don't know if that happens in the way that you talk about your 1AC. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I just find some of their statements to be a little compelling in the way that that's framed. Maybe it's just framing your framework argument a little bit differently so that you're not engaging necessarily, you're not saying you have to engage in the nitty-gritty discussion. Maybe it's just defending a policy option and defending research of a policy option is better, not necessarily having to have those discussions in this round to educate people, but somehow the way that they sort of contextualize your framing, I find that your framing that has something to do for that statement that makes it just a little bit harder for me to vote for your
I think like the best part of, like in that part of the debate, your best moment was in Cross-Ex when you're like, yeah, we have like we do have these things explanations in the app, and like that's why we meet where we like the Brian evidence that we are the nitty gritty. You know, yes, we introduced them in yes, we provided evidence, but that's not unreasonable. That I kind of I disagree with them. Like in a town meeting, would you have to like go through evidence? Like maybe if you said I've got a source that says this. Maybe that's reasonable. Just be like, yeah, I've got a source that proves what I just said. That might be something that happens in a town meeting. So I think that needs to be more in the 1AR to it. In the 1AR especially, they didn't really go for that argument as much in the 2NR. But yeah, I thought that was like the Cross-Ex of the 2NC was good on that.
Hey man. Yeah. So the last time that I judged you was quite a while ago, maybe 1.5 years ago.
Absolutely, forever.
But I wanted to say that the last time that I judged you, I told you that I felt like you were deploying rage in a way that was not as strategic as I would have liked, because it seemed like you were just sort of constantly raging, which I respect and everything.
I wasn't that young.
but I wanted to say that the way that you deployed rage in this debate was beautiful.
Thank you.
I really liked it. It gave me goosebumps during your speech. I just wanted to say
Thank
that,
you.
so.
Thank you. I've really grown up a lot since then. I'm just trying to grow up a little bit more. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck to y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks, you too.
Good debate.
Thank you.
Good luck, y'all.